Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Now in this video, I'm going to be giving you a step-by-step guide on how to get an economics role. So that could be an economist, economic consultant, economic analyst. So this is mostly targeted at people who are maybe about to start uni or in university, recent graduates, and you want to get an economic consultant role, or you want to become an economist one day, and you're just thinking, what should I do? What should I make sure I'm doing? And how do I actually get to the end goal in securing that job? And I'm just going to lay everything out. And also, I am actually going to be showing you screenshots of the cover letter that got me my first economic consultant's role. I'm going to share my CV as well at the time. So I graduated in 2019 and I got my first economics role in 2019. And I'll show you my CV and the cover letter I used to secure that role. So you want to sit down, get your notebook, prepare to screenshot, and let's get into the video. So I've split this video into different sections. So the first section, I also have my notebook here. So the first section we're going to talk about is education. So now, if you want to become an economist or work as an economic consultant, you do need an economics degree, or your degree has to have some form of economics involved in it. So some people do like business with economics, or economics with some other subject. So you need to have economics in it. It's very, very rare that you see an economist without an economics degree. So I would suggest you make sure you have a degree that is related to economics, or do a degree apprenticeship. Of course, that's obviously amazing. That's always the best one, to do a degree apprenticeship. I think that's the big one. Secure economics degree, that's first. And I think a lot of people know this anyway. Like the people who are watching my videos probably already have an economics degree or currently studying economics. So that's fine. You want to make sure that you at least try to secure a 2-2, preferably a 2-1. I was aiming for a first. I always aim high. So aim high, but make sure you at least get a 2-2, because they do look at that sometimes. So as long as you're able to pass your degree, that should be fine. Now you're studying economics. What should you be doing at university? I would suggest you join an economic society or finance society. This is extremely important, because you need to think, when you just graduated and you're applying for economics roles, you don't really have much experience, right? You need to be able to demonstrate that you have a passion for this role. You need to demonstrate why the employer should choose you as opposed to anyone else. So it's very, very important that you actually join a society, or like, for example, I joined the Economic Society and I was also course representative. And these two things that I was doing, I put on my CV. And then I listed everything I was doing, while I was in that society and while I was, I held the role of course representative. That's very, very important. And if you can secure an internship or some sort of work experience or a placement year, honestly, that is absolutely amazing. I feel like those people who do that, they end up getting a job much quicker than others who don't. So I would definitely encourage you to do this. But if you don't end up getting an internship or a placement year, then I would say really focus on the other side of things, which I'm going to mention. So like I said, joining a society and take up other like extra roles outside of your actual degree. A lot of universities will have this. Just do some research, go on the website and get involved in other activities that demonstrates your passion for economics. Now, another thing you can be doing while at university, and I would strongly suggest that people check whether their university actually teaches you how to use some of these software. So while I was at university, I was learning SPSS. This is a statistical software that a lot of economists use. So you have SPSS, you have eViews, and you have other softwares as well. If you're using that at your university, you need to state that on your CV. So make sure you really try to understand it. Don't just, I know a lot of things like you want to just get the coursework over and done with, but really try to make sure you understand how it's used, basics of that software. And I would go as far as even documenting exactly what you did on that software, how you did it. Because I think when I was using SPSS, I used it for regression analysis, and I explained that in my my CV as well in interviews as well. So take advantage of that learning experience that the university offers. Really try to understand it and document it. If you're able to document it, you can speak about it in interviews because you already have a document that explains everything, so you know what to say, so you don't forget. So definitely do that. And then on Excel, yes, try to improve your Excel skills. You're going to be using Excel a lot, and employers love it, especially for economist roles and finance roles. They love people who can use Excel and state the functions that you can use as well. I stated that on my CV, so I can use SUMIFs, VLOOKUP, pivot tables, and I'm going to link in the description box what YouTube channel you should watch to get better at Excel. It's really not that difficult, honestly, and it will just make your life a lot easier. I knew like a little bit of Excel, but I only started learning, like understanding Excel and getting really advanced at it in my role. But there's a lot more you can do while at university. Watch these courses, they're free online on YouTube. You'll be able to know the basics, and it will actually make your life easier when you're starting out. So again, that's something you can put on your CV. So those are the things that you want to be doing while you're at university. Now, okay, you finish university or you're about to finish university, what should you be doing? So once you've graduated, you're not left with no roles available or graduate program available. So what should you be doing? I graduated in 2019, the summer of 2019. I started looking for roles like towards the end of 2018, around September, October, August, September 2018. I was applying for roles a lot. So you want to actually start the application process 6 months. I will start looking 6 months before I graduate, and sometimes there might be roles out there even before those 6 months that, you know, they have a start date that's in a year's time. That I have seen some graduate programs, so it's okay for you to, you know, 7, 8 months, even a year before, to just look around and see. But I would say start actively applying 6 months, around 6 months before you graduate. Now, when you're applying for these jobs, obviously you're sending your CV to apply for these jobs, and your CV needs to look a particular way. And I'm going to put a screenshot of what my CV looked like. And I'm not saying that this is the perfect CV by any means. I know some people just want to know what it looked like, just to give them that confidence. Okay, what did your CV look like that helped you get this role? Yeah, so essentially what I did was every type of work experience I've had, no matter how small, even if it was 2 weeks, 3 weeks, insight days, any events that I attended, I put all of that on my CV. So for example, so one of the things that was on my CV, I just have my phone with me looking at my CV. So I remember I went to the Bank of England. That was only a 1-day experience, but I put on my CV everything I learned from that experience. There was another time I went to the Office for National Statistics. This was a university trip. I put that on my CV. I said I worked in a team to develop ways to minimize errors in the computation of gross domestic product, which all economic students will know, GDP, and gained in-depth understanding of how different types of data can be collected and analyzed. So I put that on my CV as well. So you want to put all these things on your CV. There were jobs that I did that's not related to economics. I did work at like Magnum London, Premier Inn as well, but these are still really good because it teaches you how to communicate. You know, some of these jobs, you need to be able to have good customer service. You need to be able to present yourself in a particular way. So you can always put all of these things down on your CV. For example, when I worked at Premier Inn, I was saying working under pressure to ensure all 250 rooms in the hotel is ready before guests arrive, and acting immediately to any queries guests may have, because these are like character building skills anyway. And obviously you can see that I quoted numbers. So even though some of the roles I did obviously wasn't economics related, I still tried to put some numbers in there. So I think that's a smart thing to do. And also, again, you will see in the screenshot how my CV is very, very neat. And in the top part, I have education first, then employment history. And for education, I stated all the modules that I've done, because it just shows you that, look, I'm an economist, like this is what I studied, these are the modules that I did, because I feel like that's very, very relevant. And a lot of economics students would have done microeconomics, macroeconomics, econometrics, and so on. So I think you should not only state your degree, but state the modules. You could even go as far as maybe stating the skills you've learned or certain things that you did in those modules. I didn't go as far as that, but I would say you could go as far as that if you don't have much experience. So you could talk about the essay that you've written and things like that. So anyway, that's it for the CV part. Now, you've got your CV. Your CV is great. It looks nice. You need to start applying for jobs now. First, create a LinkedIn profile. You cannot be looking for a job and not have a LinkedIn profile. So please create one. You can search up my name on LinkedIn and see what my LinkedIn looks like. And don't be put off by it, because obviously by now I have many years of experience. And so it's quite detailed, but still use that as like a template, and then populate your LinkedIn page and make sure you take a professional picture of yourself. And by professional, you can use your iPhone. Like literally, even as I'm filming now, I could take a professional picture. Just make sure my background is clear, whatever. So you want to have a LinkedIn profile, because a lot of recruiters search for people's profiles. Not all roles are published online. Sometimes recruiters could have a role and they're actively just looking for candidates. So you're not always going to see every single role. So you need to have a LinkedIn profile. It's just a must, right? And LinkedIn, there are just a lot of opportunities there, and you can apply for jobs on there. So that's it. You need to have a LinkedIn profile. Other job boards I used: Jobs Today, graduatejobs.com, Read Jobs. And then lastly, you just do a Google search and type in all these type of positions. So graduate economist, graduate economic consultant, or just put economic consultant, economic analyst. You can even search just analyst, because sometimes these roles are not always going to say economist, or they're not always going to say economic consultant. You can have an economics role that would just say consultant, that could just say analyst. The role I got as an economist, I found it from just a Google search. I just typed in economic graduate jobs, and then I literally found a website. I clicked on a link that sent me to an actual company website that they were recruiting for graduate role. So I went on that website and I applied directly on that website. So that's how I got my graduate job, through that method. Sometimes go on company websites and just try and look at the job positions. Also, take advantage of your university's job board as well. I actually got an interview through looking at a job board through the university, so make use of that. Now, are you guys with me so far? I know it's a long video, but I feel like it's worth it. So please stick with me. If you want to take a break, take a break. There's something else I want to talk about: cover letters. So a lot of these roles, especially graduate roles, they will ask you to write a cover letter. And I know people get put off when they see that, but I'm sorry, you're going to have to still write a cover letter. Don't just ignore a job because it asks you to provide a cover letter, or don't apply for a job and then ignore the section that asks you to provide a cover letter. Even if it's not an essential requirement, trust me, they're going to be looking at it. How do I write cover letters? So again, I'm going to put screenshots around here, and it will show you exactly what I wrote to land my economist role. They actually really loved my cover letter, and it's a way of accessing your writing skills. So if you don't know, as an economist, you're going to be writing reports. As well as doing analysis, you're going to be writing reports on your findings. So it's a way to judge your skill set as well. But essentially, I feel like the reason why my cover letter went well and stood out is because I actually showed that I had researched the company. I looked at their values. And for example, the company I applied for, safety was a big part of their values. So try to really understand what does the company find really important? What do they hold dear? You can do this by not only looking at the website, but also trying to contact people that work at that company as well. That's what I did. I have a conversation with them. What does the company value? What's important? What's their culture like? So it can really come through in the cover letter, and you need to really sound passionate, and also state things that's not in your CV. So for example, if there was a particular assignment that you did at university and you really enjoyed it, like an essay, and that essay is what really made you very passionate about being an economist or whatever, what makes you passionate about becoming an economist? That one thing that makes you really passionate, or that one thing that you saw or read one day, I would say go into a little bit more detail about it in your cover letter and have that example and expand on it. Don't make a generic cover letter. Really take your time. And I know a lot of people, they like to apply for top companies like KPMG, PwC, and I always say, yeah, it doesn't really matter. Stop looking at those big companies. As long as it gives you a decent salary and is a foot in the door into the industry, you're gaining experience. It's a win-win. I think the most important thing is to gain experience. Like, even with me, there are some companies that I've worked at that are small, but right now I'm working for a big bank, a tier 1 bank. So it doesn't matter, like how you start your career doesn't matter in terms of what company you work for. You can always work for KPMG if that's where you want to work. You can always work for these companies later. So don't think because you didn't secure that perfect role the first time round doesn't mean you can't get it in the future. And another thing I would say is stop focusing on one particular city when it comes to applying for jobs. I'm sorry, the job market is tough right now. You need to be able to, I don't want to say sacrifice something, but at the end of the day, I feel like when you're a graduate, yeah, and you're getting your first role, you need to focus on getting that experience. I think that's the most important thing. Get that experience. Like with me, my first role was, I lived in London, but my first economics role was in Birmingham. And then I moved to finance, and then I went to stay in Hertfordshire. And then now I'm back in London. Like it doesn't really matter, but gain that experience, because later on you can move back to the city of your dreams or the city where you really want to stay. So I would say don't only look at London, look at other cities as well. Don't be discouraged if you feel like you didn't get a role in London. It's not by force. You need to get that experience. Getting that experience is more important than the city you get that experience in. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, you don't want to wait too long to secure a role. You don't want to be like graduated and a year and a half later, you still don't have any work experience. So you don't want that to happen. So to me, it makes sense to be applying to all different cities and not just London in particular. If you're unable to get an economics role the first time, don't be discouraged, right? I would also say apply for other roles, like maybe for other finance roles or other graduate roles, because even if it's not an economics role, first of all, you're still going to gain experience that's relevant to becoming an economist. Like, you're going to learn how to work in the corporate world. You're going to like probably write reports, write emails. You're going to do some sort of analysis. You're going to be using Excel. So don't be discouraged if your first role is not an economics role, especially if the job market is not looking that great and you're not able to find many economist roles. I would say still apply to other graduate roles. Nothing is lost. I've seen so many people work as an economist, then move somewhere else, or someone who worked as in finance, then became an economist. So you have a long career ahead of you, so it's all good. Don't worry, people switch over all the time. The one thing you want to do is just get that experience initially. Now, you've applied for these jobs, you have a great CV, you know how to write a cover letter now, you know where to apply for jobs, right? You know how to apply for them. So next is, okay, now you've secured an interview. Now, once you've secured an interview, this is really great. It means, yeah, you have a high chance of actually getting the job because they like your CV and they believe you have the experience. Now you have to just prove it to them. So one thing I would say, I'll probably make a different video on this to go in detail on interview tips for an economist role. But what I would say is that you need to know your CV inside out. Like, know the dates, know what you've written on your CV. I know it sounds like a basic thing, but it's very, very common for people not to remember their CV or what they've written. Maybe you have many versions, right? So make sure you understand your CV inside out, because they can ask you a question about your CV and they can ask you to go into more detail about your specific parts of your CV. So know your CV inside out. So usually they start off interviews asking this question: can you tell me about yourself? And the way I would go about answering that, always start off with what you studied. Why did you study it? Maybe a module that you enjoyed at university. Talk about it, and then talk about what you did at university, why you decided to choose economics or be an economist as a career. So that's how you want to talk about it. You want to then talk about your skill set. You want to make it like a story. Or I started off studying economics. Or normally I actually start off with my A-levels. Actually, I say that, I did maths, chemistry, and economics. I'm very analytical minded, blah, blah, blah. Just have like that story prepared. Like when they ask me that question in interviews, it's just like second nature to me. I know what to say. It's very easy. So make sure you kind of like know that inside out, know your CV inside out, and know the answer to that question, because those two things are going to come up all the time. They can even ask you to go through your CV. So make sure you know your economic fundamentals. I know that you've probably graduated now, maybe it's 4 months, you know, you haven't been studying, right? Because you've just graduated, you're looking for jobs. But make sure you just know the fundamentals. The main things will be macroeconomics, I would say. Revisit your macroeconomics, understand, okay, GDP, inflation, interest rate, what's the relationship between them? Like, make sure like fiscal policy, tightening, just know those basic things, like have it in your head, because they could test you, right? Make sure you're reading the news. I'm not saying you need to watch the news every single time, but understand what is the economic climate right now, what interest rates, what's the inflation rate right now, what's the main thing going on in the news, what's the UK economy like. Just understand that, especially like if you have like an interview 2 weeks before the interview, start looking online, okay, what's going on with the economy. I have gotten questions like that before, where they ask you about they can ask you a question about what you think of the current state of the economy. So make sure you kind of have like a general knowledge of what's going on in the world. So I think that's an easy one as well. I'm not saying you should sit there and study it, just have an idea of what's going on. The last thing is, some roles, they will give you a test. All I can say is just practice, right? But when you're applying for a particular job or you've gone on an interview, try to do some research online and speak to people. What is there to expect? I would say even reach out to the company or the recruiter, so they let you know in advance what you need to prepare for, because usually there are practice tests online. The more you interview, the better you get at these things, which is why I believe people should start applying quite early, so they can start getting used to the interview and the kind of questions that they ask. So usually sometimes, yeah, there are tests, and the test is going to be different depending on the role you apply for, the company. Yes, the test will be very different between companies, so I can't really tell you what specific things you should prepare for, but just research the company so you can understand the kind of questions that they may ask. I really hope this was helpful. I think, yeah, beginning to end, that is all you need to do, and hopefully this will get you your dream job and you'll be working as an economist. Guys, it's not difficult. Just keep trying. That's what I always say. I applied for multiple jobs a day, and then where the job has a cover letter, please take your time. Don't rush it. Write that cover letter. Make sure it's good quality, because there's just no point you applying for loads of jobs and then you're not really, you're reducing your chances of getting those jobs because you're not putting in enough effort. Let me know what else you want to see on my channel, what specific topics you want me to talk about. I also have and there's going to be another video coming out where I talk you through all the projects I worked on while I was working as an economist. So my CV for that particular role as an economist, I'll walk you through that so you know what it's like, what do you work on. But yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.